Hello everyone, welcome to the Geoecolologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand, and in this session we are going to learn about the concept of humanism or humanistic geography. So out of all the modern themes in geography that we are doing, humanistic geography occupies one of the important roles in geographical thought, especially in 1970s. So let's learn about this in today's session, but before we go ahead, please like and subscribe to our channel and don't forget to share with the others. So let's understand this concept of humanism, that is about humanistic geography. So it emerged in the Anglo-American discipline during 1970s. That's important. And humanistic geography is a manner of approaching within the field of human geography. So remember, humanistic geography is one of the important parts of the entire human geography that we study, that seeks to put humans at the center of geography. That's why the word is humanism. So that kind of ism, that kind of way of life or way of looking into the space where human beings are the center. So it gives a central and active role to human awareness, human agency, human consciousness, and human creativity. So remember these four words: awareness, agency, consciousness, and creativity. So that is where it is important to remember that it is also an attempt to understand the meaning, values, and importance of the human beings. So that is where human beings are at the center of this concept. So one of the first geographers to attract a wider audience with his advocacy of humanistic approach was Kirk in 1951. But remember, it was Tuan in 1976 who argued for this humanistic geography in a broader framework. So this term humanistic geography was used for the first time by Tuan in 1976. The focus of humanistic geography is on people and their condition, that is their way of life. So for Tuan, humanistic geography was a perspective that disclosed the complexity and ambiguity. Remember again these two terminology here. Complexity is involved whenever human beings are involved, and also they are not objective beings. That's why ambiguity is there. So that's why subjectivity is there in various relationship of human beings with space. So ambiguity of relations between people and place, that is man and environment relationship. So that is the crux of humanistic geography that we study. Then furthermore, what we see is that the main objective of this humanistic geography is to do what? To bring human beings in all their complexity. So remember, unlike other segments of geography where human being is either too mechanical or too rational being, in humanistic geography, human beings are taken to be as complex as they are. So their complexity to the center stage of human geography. So that is one important point. So placing humans at the center stage of geography is basically what? It's also called sometimes as peopling human geography. So remember this important phrase, that peopling, the concept of peopling human geography is related to humanistic geography of Tuan. So according to Gregory, another scholar, it was response to dehumanizing effect. Remember what is this dehumanizing effect? We have already studied the Marxism concept, the positivistic concepts, and remember in those concepts human beings' complexity was marginalized. So what happened? It had a dehumanizing effect. So both positivism as well as Marxism had this dehumanizing effect in terms of the relationship of people and places with environment in picture. So what happened? The very beginnings of this contemporary humanistic geography made a renaissance, a revolution kind of thing in human geography. It gave the humanity a much more important place in cosmic than there had been ever in the medieval times as well. So human geography is concerned with ways in which place, space, environment are all interlinked, and both the condition and in part the consequence of human activities. So that is the broader human geography that we know. But humanistic geography tries to understand human world by analyzing people's relationship with nature, their geographical behavior, their feelings, their ideas in regard to space and place. These form the fundamental data of what we say is humanistic geography. So remember, they do not marginalize human beings in terms of being a rational being. They take care of each nuance. For example, what we see? Feelings, ideas, their behavior in the space. So all these things are being central part of the analysis of the man-environment relationship that we talk in geography. So that is where humanistic geography is important. So humanistic geography imbibed in it the philosophy of existentialism. So in detail we are going to study existentialism in lectures to come, but for now remember this philosophy of existence, the idea of being in that state, that is important. So that urged on human quality and subjectivity. So remember, humanistic geography imbibed this philosophy of existentialism in order to emphasize on the quality of human being, the subjectivity of their existence. That's important. So it was based on doctrine of existence before essence. Remember, the first important point of existentialism is the existence itself, that is birth of human being itself, their particular state of being, rather than the meanings that they create later on. So not just existence, then later on their essence as well. So what? Which implied the humans existed first. Thereafter, they were responsible for their every action. So it does not only question their actions, but it talks about their existence as well. So humanistic geography originated as perspective against the form of human geography that was reduced to just an abstract study in the other studies of space and structures. So it freed human beings from that particular barricading. So sometimes humanistic geography could be used interchangeably with humanism, that we say, because it accorded central role to humans. So when we say human geography and humanistic geography, what is the basic difference? Human geography is a broader framework where we assign the central role to humans. But to that extent where human beings are not just one of the fragments or sections of space, they are giving much more importance when we talk about this revolution of humanistic geography in the modern themes in geography. So precisely, humanistic geography was mainly concerned with outcomes of this existence of human beings and their activities, rather than just human activities. So that is the major difference between humanism and humanistic geography, if we'd say, but they are part of the same completeness. So human geography is a complete whole, of which this particular movement in geography is a significant part, especially in 1970s. That's how we can understand. So human geography and humanistic geography are not different from each other. Rather than human geography is a broader framework in which humanistic geography is very specific, where human beings are given this particular attention. So humanistic geography was based on these three basic percepts. What? So the first is anthropocentrism, the second is subjectivity, and the third is concept of this particular thing that we talk about is place. So spaces and places. This concept was now again emphasized in terms of specifically place. These are those spaces that are created specifically by human beings using their existence, their cultures, their essence. So that is what is a place. So this is important. So these three important underlying principles of the making of humanistic geography: anthropocentrism, subjectivity, and concept of place. So remember, spaces are there, but places are made. So making of places was important when we talk about this concept of humanistic geography. So humanistic geography did not consider humans as mere just an economic van like the positivistic concept. So that's important. So Tuan identified following 5 major themes in humanistic geography. So let's understand. First was geographical knowledge or personal geographies. So what was that? It was basically talking about that human beings were to be treated as rational beings with their ability to think and perceive. So human beings thinking and perception mattered a lot in this approach. Then the main task of humanistic geographers, therefore, was to study the ideas and thoughts that emanated from human minds. So human mind was again the key concept. So each and every human being possessed such knowledge through perception that was varied. So not human beings were not homologous. They were different in their perceptions. So they utilized their geographical knowledge for the biological survival. Hence, geographical knowledge was conceived as very personal. So that was the first important theme in humanistic geography. Then the next important thing is the role of territory and creation of place identities. That's very important. So let's understand. Every human being occupied and utilized some of this space with which they developed a strong sense of emotional bonding. So isn't it? We develop gradually a sense of emotion with the places that we make for ourselves. So you may be staying in any particular city, in any particular society, and when you are staying there, initially that is just a place, that is just a space for you. But gradually with your emotions, your emotional bonding, you create a sense of place, a belongingness in that particular space. But when you leave it, again it gradually vanishes. The newer place becomes your place. So that keeps on happening continuously over this space, because that is related to how we bond with that particular space. So that's important. So much of this biological needs were satiated in that space. Hence a particular space constituted the territory of humans, which was not confined area in its literal sense, but a place where human beings identified themselves. So remember, this concept was not just creating a particular physical boundary. It may transcend that. So for example, if I stay in New Delhi, so New Delhi can be a space for somebody who's staying in any other city in India or any other city in the world. But for me, because I have spent considerable days of my life, many important years in New Delhi, so now this is a place for me. I have an emotional attachment with this city. So that is important to understand in terms of the territory of human beings, the place making that we study. So this perspective of experience was one of the major key points that was given, that was pioneered by Tuan. So he talked about two phenomena. One was topophobia and one was topophilia. So what is this topophobia? Topo means land, phobia means fear, and philia means attachment. So two kinds of behavior of human beings. One is when they are attached to a place, and the other is when they are afraid, they have a fear of that place. So topophobia means place where we feel unsafe, the landscapes of fear. That's what important is. And topophilia is the love we feel in a certain place. So remember, this is an emotional attachment. This is about feeling. This is about abstraction. This is about mind of human beings coming into the picture and behavior accordingly. So this is important. So these varies from individual to individual. They cannot be just talked in a positivistic perspective or just in a way where we say that, okay, X is the function of Y. So there are numerous perspectives, numerous thoughts, numerous emotions that are involved in place making. Further, the third important point was crowding and privacy. This was again discussed in terms of the cultural, social institutions and infrastructure. So in a similar way, privacy and seclusion was important for all the human beings, as it also influenced the thought process and actions of human beings. Don't we say that I need my private space? This is my privacy. This is my seclusion for thinking, for rationality in my head. I want some peace. I want to be secluded for some time. That is where it's important, because that gives rise to the thought process and actions. So privacy was thought to be required by every individual. So this is what we see, that humanistic geography is layer after layer decoding human brain, human behavior, human ideas, human thoughts. So that is important. So within that private space, individuals develop their own personal world. We many times say that this is my world. In my world, I think this particular thing. So this is what it talked about. So role of geographical knowledge in determining the livelihood. That was the fourth important point. So when we talk about livelihood, it's important to relate it with economic activities. So geographical knowledge is there to decide what kind of economic activities will happen. So accordingly, this was an approach where this concept of pragmatism was also mixed apart from existentialism. So in lectures to come, we are also going to learn about existentialism and pragmatism as well. So in doing so, they were in a position to distinguish between life sustaining and life destroying processes, activities. That's where it is important to understand how this place making, this human being make places, and also using that geographical knowledge, they determine their livelihood. They talk about life sustaining functions and life destroying functions, how they distinguish between these two. That's important. Further, what we see here is the impact of religion. That was the fifth point in humanistic geography, as religion was supposed to be subjective and associated with normative elements. What are these elements? Values, beliefs, ethics. So religion was conceived as the desire for coherence, that was kind of having the similar levels. That is what it brings. So the variation in this desire, which differed from individuals to individuals and cultures to cultures. So that was important. So humanistic geography employed the usage of two complementary research methods. So when we talk about themes, these were the 5 themes. But when we talk about the methods, there are 2 distinct methods that were taught in humanistic geography. So that is what? Explanations of experiences, that was the first one, and the second was interpretation of the social world. That is the second important point. So first was the explanation of personal experiences, that is where emotions, beliefs and other things come into the picture. That is where experiences matter. So that is how we perceive that space and accordingly behave. Then the second was how to interpret the social world that is around us. So that was the second part. So that was the second part of the method, where it was based on philosophical arguments rather than just experiential evidences. So both experience as well as interpretation. So it involved a wide range of philosophical traditions ranging from existentialism, pragmatism, idealism, post-structural theories, that is post-Marxist approach, where it was just a dialectic approach. So that was when this entire methodology was discussed of humanistic geography. But remember, like any other approaches, humanistic geography was also not foolproof. It had several criticisms as well. So the first was basic criticism, that was against that this researcher was not in a position to ascertain whether this real and true explanation has been provided or not after doing that kind of research, looking into human behavior, as it was too much of diversity, too much of explanation in context. So generalization was far away, and a researcher often got confused that whether the explanation is real or true. So that was one problem. Then other methodological ground issue was that humanistic geography differentiated and distinguished between physical and human geography. So it further made what? Dualism again come live to the core of subject matter. So dualism of actually physical geography and human geography not just being separate but also opposing each other, that was what it brought to the fore. Then humanistic geography was criticized as methodologically obscure. It basically meant that no sound methodological base or important base for its validity on the basis of methodological ground was authenticated or successfully grounded. So that was important. And finally, the concept of this place that we say as enshrined in humanistic geography as was static and exclusive. So it was not much inclusive, and it was more of static nature that humanistic geography propounded. So this was criticized by several post-structuralist geographers who presented a progressive and dynamic concept of space. So remember, the concept of space changed when post-structuralism come in, and when postmodernist geographers, postmodernist scholar talked about this progressive development of space in the place-making format rather than just fixing it to a particular individual. So that was the static concept, and that's why it was criticized. So now, when we have learnt about the concept of humanistic geography and humanism, in the lectures to come, we'll be talking about the other modern themes in geographical thought like idealism, existentialism, pragmatism and so on. So stay tuned, stay safe, and all my best wishes.